And so the ability to teach the strategists who work on our team of how to interview and ask good questions and ask secondary questions and dig into things, that skill of interviewing, like you said, building that muscle is so crucial for marketers. And you hear it all over. Like, if you're not getting out there and talking to people, good luck.
Every B2B marketing team faces challenges when they have to do more with less. Should you build skills internally? Should you find a freelancer? Should you search for the right agency? This is Tech Qualified, a podcast for the scrappy B2B marketing teams. In each episode, Meredith Metsker, a senior content leader at a tech company, and Justin Brown, a marketing agency owner, uncover how marketing teams generate qualified opportunities with limited resources. Every episode helps you get one step closer to winning over your ideal customers.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tech Qualified. I'm Meredith Metsker, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Brown.
Hello, everyone.
This show is brought to you by New North. New North specializes in working with B2B marketers who have to do more with less. When you partner with New North, you turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. So today, listeners, Justin and I are going to do kind of a quick recap and discussion episode based on an interview we did a little while back with Tory Kindlick, the VP of Marketing at Corti. So we'll just kind of talk through our takeaways, what stuck out to us, and just use what Tory said as a jumping off point for some more conversations. So Justin, I want to start us off with something that I think really stuck out to both of us in the interview with Tory, was when he was talking about how if he could hypothetically build a team from the ground up, like if he joined a new company as the VP of marketing, he needed to make this first hire. He said he would hire a content marketer first, which, of course, to me as a content marketer, I was just like, yes, thank you, love it. But I'm curious, what were your thoughts on him saying he would hire a content person first?
Well, so selfishly also, and I come from a content background, I was excited about that answer at first. And then there was also a piece of me that then started to dissect the answer a bit, which was the idea of building a team based on needs versus necessarily what he thought was most important. And I'll get into this in a second, because to me, when we start any campaign, and I've talked about this on previous episodes, everything starts with a content plan. Like, we need to have a content plan in place. So I am a very firm believer in that. However, Tory comes from Refined Labs. He is a big data person. He's more technical in nature. So I would wonder if it was like, okay, Tory, you are like CEO or like executive chairman, and you're making your first marketing hire. Is it a content marketing person? That's where I would love to put him to task, because it's like he hired, as I thought about it more, it was like he had the skill sets of the more technical marketer, and he's hiring the thing that he didn't have. And now with that, I mean, I do think that those things really have to play together. So I would actually ask you a question, Meredith, like, what is that setup like at your organization? So you're the content marketer. What are your peers like at the organization? Is it like you as content, and then you have technical people around you? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think the first person that was hired in marketing, at least for our current iteration, was the VP of marketing. And then she hired me, so I was the first additional marketer.
And what's her background?
Also in marketing.
But like, is she more of a technical marketer, like working in CRM, paid media campaigns? Is she more content focused? I'm curious what your boss is like. What's her, like, when someone were to ask me about you, and they'd be like, what is Meredith in marketing? I'm like, she's a content marketer, big on, creating visual content, written content, etc. How would you describe your boss's aptitudes, or the things, most marketers are like better at certain things. I have people on my team who run all sorts of campaigns for their clients, but I know that even though this person is running this content initiative, they're more traditionally like a paid media person or something like that. So just curious, like, what's your your VP's like biggest strengths?
Yeah, I'd say there's kind of a variety of strengths really, but she does have like, I don't know that she produced a lot of content herself, but she has always like really valued that and really like used that as a pillar of her strategy.
Mm-hmm.
But she's also a whiz in HubSpot, like creating all those campaigns, things like that. So she's kind of a little bit of both, which is handy for me because not like she understands my work really well, but she can take on some of those more technical aspects that I get a little overwhelmed by.
Yeah. And so like very much that way, if I, let's say, sell our agency, I go out there, everything's great. I get to go pick of the litter on just going to get a job that I want. And let's just say I land a CMO job at some company. And I was going to go make my first hire. Like my first hire would be a more technical person. Like I would want someone who would have those technical, because I would immediately launch a podcast. I would immediately want to run content. I would be like, story is what matters. We need to be talking to people in the space. We need to get out there, get our name known, so on and so forth. And my immediate hire, and this is very much actually the setup of our business, Tristan, my business partner, he's a former consultant and developer from IBM, Oracle, etc. So again, that's like literally what I'm doing now. But that would be the first person I would hire would try to be someone who would be like Tristan, my current business partner. I would be like, I need that technical person because that technical marketer, that technical, liaison within my marketing team, because I have some more of those content skills. So it's almost like when I first heard Tory's answer, I was like, win for content. And then as I thought about it more, it was like both sides really need each other. And for me, it goes into the same thing that I've talked about on the show quite a bit, which is like, you need the owned experiences, that content piece, to then fuel the amplification, which is some more of those technical pieces, launching campaigns, running paid media, running sequences, nurture campaigns, working within the CRM, etc. They just almost like, you need both. And it's very hard to find one person who has both of those skill sets that I've found within marketing.
Yeah, that's why you see it as two separate roles often. So it's like what you're saying is not that content is like necessarily a wrong first hire. It's more like you just need something complementary to what your skill set is. If you're technical, maybe your first hire is content. If you're more content, your first hire is technical, just so you can have a rounded out skill set on your team. Yeah,
and I use this, I use a line all the time on sales calls because, we're selling a solution that is here to help you in your marketing department. If you need content, if you need tracking, marketing operations, what have you, we're trying to get that entire thing running. And I say to people, I'm like, we're typically competing with like a full-time employee. That's about the price. Let's just call it $10,000 a month. And what I say to people all the time is, if you can find an employee at $10,000 a month that can do content, that can run your paid media campaigns, can run your CRM, can run your analytics, and you don't want to hire them, please tell me about them so I can hire them. Because it's very, very hard to find someone that can do all of those things that isn't going to, I don't even want to say break the bank, because in most cases, if you find someone who can do all of those things, they have all of those skill sets, in many cases, they're going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to go work for myself. Yeah, like I have incredible skill set. It's just very hard to come by. And, myself and my business partner, we wouldn't, we're business owners, and we wouldn't even sit here and say that we individually have those. We had to team up together to be that kind of comprehensive marketer. So yeah, I mean, it's really hiring for what you need versus like a specific skill set. Because especially in B2B tech, you're going to find tons of companies that marketing is being run by a CEO or founder who's more of a technologist, or someone like that is more their skill set. And for them, content would be huge. They can figure out those more technical pieces, but they don't have someone who can storytell, who can get involved in community and, relate to the space and things like that. I think those soft skills are super important a lot of times in B2B tech. I talk to tons of founders who are looking for marketing. And that's typically what they lack is they don't even know where to start with that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That's why it's such a specialized skill set. I was thinking too, like if you're more of a content background type marketer and and you don't have a technical person, you might struggle with distributing your content and getting it out there quite like as much as you would if you had a technical marketer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's all about trying to just identify the skill sets that you have, where there are gaps, and then where you can fill in. And so I don't want to say unfortunately, but like as I thought more about the Tory interview and thought about his background, it started to make more sense. Unfortunately, it was like he wasn't necessarily, we'd have to get his opinion. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't think he was necessarily going and beating a drum for content, although he did do that and he kind of said it, which was nice. But I think it more was him saying in another way is this isn't my thing as much. And so my first hire is going to be the thing that I need. I'm going to go get the person out there that I need because if I'm working on a very small team, a team of 2, I'm one and I need one more. I know the things I can do, and then I need that person that can do the other things that I need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. You want complementary skill sets.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the other things that he mentioned, it was like around the same time as we were talking about this hiring hypothesis, but he was saying that one of the challenges he faced when he was joining a new market, like I think Corti is like a healthcare tech company, and he doesn't come from a healthcare background. And it was super different from his previous role at like Refine Labs, where he was, a marketer marketing to marketers or selling to sellers, where he knew that subject matter super well. Where at Corti, he had to manufacture credibility, I think is how he referred to it, which is, I think, super interesting. And I can relate to that a lot because I have to do the same thing in my job. We sell to career services professionals in higher ed. I have worked in higher ed, but I have not worked in career services. I didn't even use career services when I was a college student, even though I should have. And so he was mentioning that like one of the ways he manufactured that credibility was to like place experts in the field, like doctors, alongside folks within his company who knew the product best, like their chief technology officer, their product leaders, and so on, for like podcast interviews, articles, things like that. And so I was curious, Justin, is that a tactic that you see often in your line of work since you work with so many different types of companies?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. So like one of the things that we never do is try and position ourselves as experts within our client space. We are experts in doing marketing for small marketing teams that need to get scrappy, don't have a lot of budget, and need to do a lot with a little. And for us, the big thing is, our system, which is coming in, doing our research, doing our strategy, launching content, and then figuring out what channels that we're going to go into. But with that, one of the biggest things when it comes to the content piece is, as I've mentioned to you before, Meredith, is that we are always trying to set up some form of video series or some form of podcast for our clients where they can go out there and they can demonstrate value to the space, whether that is interviewing and talking and being alongside their peers or what have you. But like that kind of collaborative content that Tory was talking about is just so critical in my opinion. And one of the things that we've done a lot more lately, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this because it goes against kind of what some of the things that you do are, is we've been conducting in an effort to avoid dependencies where we're reliant on our client going out and getting interviews with the people in their space. We have decided that when we're running these video series for our clients, we're actually not running like full 40-minute like videos. There are a lot of times like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes max, and they're going onto the YouTube channel. And we're actually conducting those interviews and then just doing like nice, like clean, shorter pieces for YouTube. And it's provided us with the interview itself in many cases is still like 40 minutes to an hour. And then we cut it up and put it in one nice piece. But what we're finding as well is the beauty of this, and this goes to just marketing in general, and this is going to be very similar to what you do. Anyway, I'll stop talking about it and talk to it, is it helps our strategists so much to get up to speed on the space when they're the ones conducting the interviews. Like, I have a strategist on our team who has conducted like 15 to 20 interviews with our client's customers, prospective customers for that client over the last 3 months. In those 3 months, they've spent, let's call it 15 interviews, and I think I might be shortchanging it. That's 15 hours of just information about your space just getting pumped into that strategist's brain. So while they may not have been an expert on your space when we started working together, over 3 months, they got a ton of information. And so I think that goes heavily to what marketers can do. I know you do it, and I'm sure it helped you tremendously at UConnect. Hey, I'm going to launch a podcast, and I'm going to learn everything about career services, and you were just talking about it. I'm not an expert on this, and now I'm going to become a better one. And now, from my understanding, and you can talk to it better than I can, I mean, you're very much viewed as someone who knows what you're talking about within your space, even though you have more of a history in content and marketing than in higher ed, although you do have a background in higher ed. But anyway, neither here nor there. The big thing for me is these interviews are so powerful, and being able to get in front of people in your space is so important. And so we've actually used this like dependency, waiting on the client. It takes a long time. So we actually cut ourselves out of those interviews. And that's why it's a shorter piece, because it's going to be weird if someone's like talking to themselves for 40 minutes.
Right.
So we cut ourselves out of it. We shorten it down, but then we could still produce like 3 blog posts out of it, multiple short videos, social content, etc. And we're doing like real-time qualitative research on the client that we're using in our marketing materials. So that's some of what we're doing there, and has been very, very helpful for us as a business.
That's really interesting. So to clarify, are you conducting these interviews with like your clients at the company, or with the people your clients would have interviewed if they were doing the interviews? Yeah,
it just depends on what the content is that we're looking for, and like how much of subject matter experts the client has within the organization and things like that. I mean, the company I was actually just referencing, they're actually a Fortune 500 company, which is very large for us. We don't typically work in that, but they do have a small marketing team, which is interesting how different organizations are set up. So they're still technically our ICP, even though they're huge, their marketing team is small. And so with them being a huge company, we've actually focused much more on doing interviews with people at the organization. They have some people at the organization who've been there for 15 years. They know every single thing there is to know about that space. And so we actually don't need to go out and find like crazy guests to bring on or anything like that. They're, again, Fortune 500 company, I think they have like 20,000 employees. Like, there's no shortage of people for us to talk to. So we're actually conducting internal interviews, using that as the crux for creating our written content. And then, and so it typically revolves around like, what do we want to write about? That's where the who do we want to talk to comes from. And then we also use that interview then as their YouTube series that we're running. And those videos are shorter. They're like 2 to 4 minutes in length. And then the social content that we're putting out as well. Because if you don't have some pillar from with which to make your social content, it makes it much harder. So by doing this, we are, through one 60-minute interview, we're able to educate ourselves more on the space. And you could say all you want, like that if someone in the company did the interview, just go listen to it. You and I both know as podcast hosts, it's a completely different ballgame. I can go listen to marketing podcasts all I want. It pales in comparison to what I learned from conducting interviews myself. I'm sorry. It's not even close. Like, I have to do the prep, the research. I have to know who I'm talking about. I have to listen to it. That information has to go. I can't, when I'm interviewing somebody, I can't, like, let's say I have headphones in and let's say I'm on a run and I see a dog. I might not pay attention for the entire time until I don't see that dog anymore and I missed all that. When you're doing an interview, I mean, you're checked in. You are like super focused. You may be doing something else, putting away dishes. You could be mowing the lawn, whatever it may be, and you just lose focus. When you're conducting an interview, you are actively listening, consuming information, coming up with the subject matter. And so by doing this one action, and I don't necessarily like it or dislike it more, but it is a new thing that we have been doing over the last year that I have seen very positive results in, and we don't shy away from, which is, hey, I know we're your agency. We're not going to be on camera, but we'll conduct the interview. We get the qualitative research that I mentioned. We get assets for social media. We get long form written posts. We get assets for a YouTube series. And then, oh, by the way, all of these things can then play into what we're saying on paid media. We can leverage requests to join the show in ABM campaigns, or, hey, have you heard the show? You know, there's just no shortage of actions that you can do and positive results out of running one of these types of initiatives.
Not to mention you have complete control over the quality of that interview, because interviewing is a skill. It is difficult. Like, not only do you have to be prepared, as you were saying, and have your questions in order, you have to be a good active listener. It's a very specialized skill. So when you get to conduct those interviews yourself, I imagine it gives you a little more control over the quality of the responses, quality of the interview, and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a tremendous skill that I'm essentially forcing our strategists at our organization to learn how to have. And as a marketer, the ability to ask questions is just so critical. I mean, we face this all the time when it comes to results. Is like, you know, if you don't learn how to ask questions and get a real understanding of what people are thinking, saying, what have you, it's like you could have a CEO at one of our client companies say that they're looking for X results. And if you don't ask why, you may not actually know what they're really looking for. They may be looking for the completely wrong thing. And you didn't ask deeper questions to really get an understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish, and the results that they're looking for could be the completely wrong trackable metric. And you could have a way better, you know, thing to track or to talk through on a weekly basis with your client, but because you didn't ask deeper questions, or your boss, if you're an internal marketer, because you didn't ask better questions or have the ability to ask questions, now you're just stuck with what you just said okay to. And so the ability to teach the strategists who work on our team of how to interview and ask good questions and ask secondary questions and dig into things, whether it's in crazy markets that have nothing to do with marketing or our space, it doesn't matter. You know, that skill of interviewing, like you said, building that muscle is so crucial for marketers. And you hear it all over LinkedIn and different places, you know, good marketers saying, like, if you're not getting out there and talking to people, like, good luck.
Yeah, your content's not going to hit. Yeah. It's not going to hit the same.
And so for us, it's like this ability for our strategists to not only speak to our client, like they have the ability to get involved in our clients' you know, space, the people that they work with, whether they're talking to customers or prospects or subject matter experts internally or, you know, influencers within the space externally. So it's just interesting. It's an interesting thing that we hadn't gone down too much when we were more podcast focused. And as the video side, we were like, maybe we don't need to do like 60-minute interview style that feels interview style. Like, what if we do the interview, cut it up, pick out the best pieces, and then all the stuff that was cut out is still stuff that we can use within our marketing materials. We're not throwing it away necessarily, but the end product is more like chopping everything out versus like, you know how it is with podcasts, Meredith? It's like the podcast itself is that is the thing. We're trying to drive everyone to that thing. And sometimes we say, we don't even need that like big end giant 45-minute recording. Maybe it's just everything from it is just being parsed out all over the place. So just a little bit of a different approach that we found to be successful to get people out of the process, because those barriers, again, you run the podcast. That's great. But if you had a busy executive who wanted to run the podcast, all of a sudden you have lots of barriers, and we're constantly sitting there saying, hey, Meredith, did, Jimmy record the podcast? He got busy. All right, can you get it to? And then we're sitting here with no content. And then 2 months later, someone's like, so where are the results? And I'm like, well, you never got us the content. And then you're both just a Spider-Man meme, right? Like, you're just pointing your fingers at each other. Nobody wins in that situation. Yeah, you both lose. The content team loses. The results team loses. Everybody loses because there's no content to work from. So how do we remove that barrier? You get marketing involved one way or the other. So that's been one of our workarounds there.
That's interesting. Sounds like it's worked really well for you guys. Like, not only is it giving you great content to work with, but as you were saying, your strategists are becoming good interviewers. They're getting in-depth insights into the audience that they're working with. Like, that is invaluable. It is so hard to get that if you don't have those direct conversations. Like, I don't even know how you would try to recreate that in another way.
No, it's why you launch.
It wouldn't be efficient.
You launch a podcast everywhere you go for that very reason. You're like, I can't create content unless I talk to people. Like, I have to talk to people. But you would be so surprised, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it's why you do it, because you're not surprised because you know about it. But like, when people just say, just go write a blog post. It's like, I mean, we definitely can. You want me to go write a blog post? I used this example earlier on real-time data in oncology. You want me to, like, we're talking to scientists who are literally brilliant and trying to fight cancer. You want my team to go write your blog post? We'll do our best. We'll look through all of the materials that we can online, and we'll put together a darn good blog post for what we have. Or, hear me out, let me talk to a doctor. Just let me talk to a doctor. And I promise you, the article that we write after we talk to a doctor or two, and you know this from journalism, we're not writing articles in journalism, as a journalist, without quotes. We need supporting quotes that most journalists, if you're a journalist in pharmaceuticals or whatever it may be, in healthcare, most journalists in healthcare were not doctors. If they were doctors, they wouldn't be journalists. That's why I'm not a journalist. Because I was like, these people don't make any money, and I don't want to do this. Because I also have that background. And so we got out of it, right? So most journalists don't have that background. So what do? They leverage interviews with experts to support the article that they're writing. As marketers, we should be doing the exact same thing. Going to someone and saying, I need you to write an SEO optimized blog post. Awesome. We'll do it. And you know what? A doctor's going to read it, and they're going to go, this sucks. I don't want to read this. This is not
and
content.
And they're probably not going to use your product as a result.
Yep. This is not content that I feel like is actually written by, or feels like it's by, one of my peers. That I read this and say, this was a valuable, and this goes for podcasts too. I talk about this a lot, which is, at the end of the day, when people are dedicating their time to read articles in the space, listen to podcasts, watch videos, everybody asks the same question of themselves afterward, was that a good use of my time? Because you're not really replacing the time that you would be watching education. Most people are not going to listen to this podcast and replace watching The Sopranos. That's their fun time, entertainment time. This is I'm going to listen to Tech Qualified because I want to get better at marketing. So this is my personal development time. And after an episode, they're going to ask themselves, was listening to that a good use of my time? If you and I waste their time, they're not going to come back. And so you write an SEO optimized blog post and drives traffic to the site. Somebody clicks on it and they're a doctor and they go and they read it. And it's not coming from anybody other than what you wrote. The odds that it's going to really resonate with them, maybe. Or you let us talk to two doctors. All of a sudden, I have 20,000 words. Let's say we did 2-hour-long interviews. I got 25,000 words that are from the doctors' mouths. Now, you want me to write an article? I believe I could write a damn good article that another doctor who comes to your site is going to care about. Because we have their peers, we know how they speak, we were able to leverage all of that. if you don't want people to talk to people in your space and you want them to be experts on your very narrow segment, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're going to have to pay someone who knows it. You're going to have to pay a doctor to write you an article. That's going to matter. And you know how much that article's going to cost from that doctor? It's going to be expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like even in some of my freelance work, like I tend to specialize in like HR tech, people analytics type spaces just because I'm really familiar with it. But I always tell companies, I'm like, I am not a subject matter expert in this area. I still need to talk to somebody who is. I know the general language that y'all use, but I still need to talk to an expert because I'm a marketer.
Yeah.
I'm good at interviewing. I'm good at synthesizing all that information in a way that is understandable, but I cannot be an expert in all things. It's just impossible.
I mean, you look at sports journalists, people who are in the Hall of Fame for sports journalism, Baseball Hall of Fame, Peter Gammons. I don't know this for a fact, so don't quote me, but I doubt he played Major League Baseball. These people did not do it, but they were able to speak to enough people within the space to then continue to refine their skills and become an expert within it. In every space, it's based off of interviews and conversations with people who are the experts within that space, and that's how you build that muscle. And for us, without interviews, when someone comes to me and says, just write an article, I'm like, I don't want to say I say no, but I'm like, is there someone we can speak to? Even if it's you, like my point of contact, like the person on the other who tells me to write the article. I'm like, can we talk to you? Can I ask you some of your opinions on the topic that you want us to write about? So at least we have something to work from, to chisel away at, to have good quotes about. We can, but anyway. So yeah, that is some of the approaches that we've been taking.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I could not agree more on just the need for just going directly to the source. And I think that's kind of a good place to start wrapping us up. But Justin, is there anything else you wanted to add about Tory's interview before we wrap up?
No, I think I'm good. The only thing, I don't know if Tory is looking for a job, found a job. And the last I heard, he was a free agent out there. So if you're looking for a very talented VP of marketing, CMO, you can find him on LinkedIn, Meredith and myself as well. And that's the little plug there that he didn't even ask for. But, it's always good to get people's names out there. And the economic climate is tough. So anybody that we can ever help, and marketers do listen to this show,
Absolutely. Yep. Marketers got to help each other out for sure.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks, Justin. And thanks everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Tech Qualified. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for checking out Tech Qualified. This show is brought to you by New North, a marketing agency that helps turn your small, scrappy marketing team into a growth engine. To find out more about New North or check out more episodes of this show, go to newnorth.com/techqualified.